and let Kathy go first with summer school so we can get that behind us, and then we'll move into quarterly budget update, and then move after that to the student assignment update and the update on Trinity Middle School. So have some really good stuff for you today. So I have Kathy Waddell here, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, who will be sharing with you our plan for the summer school plan out of House Bill 82. We will be needing to send that to Raleigh pretty soon. It has to be in Raleigh no later, our plan no later than May 2. Most of what there's very little wiggle room in this plan because of the way the legislation set out the expectations. So we're going to share with you our plan, and we'll move forward with that and answer any questions you have. So Kathy, if you'll take over, I'll add in as we go along.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to share the Randolph County School System Summer Learning Plan that, as Dr. Gainey shared with you, will be submitted to DPI on or before May 2nd of this year. You have a board memo there. I'm going to work from this PowerPoint because it captures what is in your memo, in addition to some other valuable pieces of information that you will be able to see this afternoon. The summer learning opportunity requirements as laid out by House Bill 82, which has now become Session Law 2021-7, requires that every school system in the state of North Carolina offer a summer opportunity for grades K-12. So the plans, as Dr. Gainey and I have said, must be submitted 30 days prior to the end of the school year. This law requires in-person instruction delivered either for 150 hours or 30 days, and it cannot be done on Saturdays. It requires a period of physical activity, K-3 instruction in reading and mathematics, with third grade receiving instruction in science as well. Students in grades 4 through 8 will have instruction in reading, math, and science. K-8 will provide an enrichment activity such as art, music, or PE. 9-12 instruction is to be in end-of-course subjects, access to credit recovery modules, and in-person instruction for an elective course. There should be time built into every school schedule for small group instruction with at-risk students. It also lays out a plan for K-12 in-person social emotional learning supports. Transportation and meals are to be provided. Participation for at-risk students is voluntary. There's nothing about this summer learning opportunity that is mandatory for parents or students. It's mandatory for us as a school district to offer the summer learning opportunity, but it is not mandatory for students to attend. We must notify parents of students who are identified as at risk, who meet that eligibility for participation in the program. At-risk students are defined as students who are at risk of failure and who are not successfully progressing toward grade promotion and graduation. So our goal, when we saw House Bill 82 before it actually became legislation, we started thinking about how would we offer a summer learning program in our school district, because it also says that it is for at-risk students, and where space permits, it is to be for students who want to participate. So if I send out my at-risk list and I get a phone call from a parent who says, well, my child's not deemed at risk, but I'd like for he or she to come to the summer program, If I have space available, then I can allow that student to be a part of the summer program as well. Our program, Randolph County Schools program, is scheduled to operate beginning on June 14th and run through July 22nd for a total of 150 hours. We chose hours as opposed to 30 days because we could get 150 hours in prior to August 1. Of the 31 school sites in the district, our plan is to use 8 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 8 high schools.
Kathy, do you think you can get enough teachers, staff that want to earn extra money to fill the spaces, or what happens? Is it going to be an issue, you think?
Mr. Cook, we sent out a survey, it stayed up for 7 days, and we got very good representation from elementary school teachers. We got not as good a representation from high school and middle school teachers. But what I do think has happened in the high schools is that teachers have gone to their principals and said, I want to teach. I'd like to teach, but they didn't necessarily fill out the survey. Beth handled the survey, and she has entertained calls from principals and teachers to say, please add my name to your list. So it would.
They wouldn't have to. I was hoping they wouldn't have to beg or leave.
What kind of response are you getting on that July 6th through 9th?
Well, we've got some
That's
folks,
the week of the 4th.
it is the week of the 4th. But we have tried very hard to stay close to a district plan that would allow us to be finished by July 22nd. And we cannot be finished by July 22nd if we don't use those days.
Which I know we're mandating, I think it was unanimous, right, the legislators unanimously
Isn't
voted.
that amazing how they all.
It was unanimous. The only thing, like I said, I know we gotta do with,
And never voted unanimous in their life.
well, the only thing that I hate is you're sitting there with a high school or a middle school, and you got 5 kids in there, you got a whole staff in there.
Well, we'll hire teachers based on the number of kids,
Yeah,
so it won't be,
so if there's a bunch of kids, yeah, but I'm just saying, what if we have a lot of kids in July the 4th week, they just don't show up?
well,
We gotta keep the doors open. I know it's what it is, I can't say it ain't our fault, but I mean, it's just, you know.
well, the other thing too is you did the 4-day week to match what we do in the summer as well with 4-day weeks. So that's lined up as well. That's why you see.
I mean, it's just, I know it's unanimous, I know just observation is just not good. Just not.
Mr. Biggs, you know what I suspect will happen, that people will take vacation whenever they decide to take vacation. Everybody doesn't go away the week of the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So we will have weeks during this summer opportunity where we will be missing kids because they've already planned their summer vacation. So we're just gonna have to,
You don't need to give it away.
we'll just have to deal with it the best way that we can.
But I was looking at more of the, I think the kids will be fine, I just think about the staff, you know. But it is what it is.
I don't think they want to be out all week, they want to sign up for something. Surely. Surely.
Yeah. Like I said, go ahead, I know it's unanimous.
I certainly understand your concern.
What does it mean by space? Is there a certain number when we say space? Or is it based on number of teachers we have?
For example, if I invited 100 middle school students to come to my school for summer learning, and only 60 of them showed up, but I had the availability to seat 100 students, then if there were other students that I did not invite who then wanted to come, I could allow those students to come because I'd have space available.
Quick question to that is, say you have 100 students capability, say you had 90 show up, 90 come at low risk, and you had 30 others who wanted to come, how do you determine which of those 30s get to come?
I would do it on a first come, first served basis. Whichever were the first 10 that called and said they wanted to come, those would be the 10 that I take. I don't think there's any other fair way to handle that than to just do it on a first come, first served basis.
Well, a year like we've had, how many total at-risk students, but this is, I mean, roughly, would you feel like you would send a lot, probably, right?
The elementary school numbers right now are 3,582
At-risk?
at risk.
Wow. That's bad. We gotta hope they all.
And that's identified by the individual schools according to being at risk. So that's the cumulative. So then back to your question, Mr. Bowles, then you'd have, each site would have X number of seats based on that, and then we work back from there.
So you said elementary school, that's roughly 8 to 10 schools.
We're going to use 8 schools. We're going to use, it started, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, it started kind of with the idea of the reading camp, 4 sites we used, and then saw the numbers were big enough, we wouldn't need more than just 4 sites, Mr. Bowles. But again, this is the number identified, that's the number of letters that will start going out in the next few days. But there's still the other piece to it is who gets a letter and says, I'm coming? And that'll be the other piece that comes to it. And then after that, then how many seats are there not used, and how many calls we get saying, well, I wasn't at risk, but I'd like to see if there's one. So we've got a lot of work to do in the next few weeks to hone in on what the actual staffing feature of Mr. Biggs to your, what is the staffing gonna look like? Right now, the only thing we can go on is the number of letters that are gonna go out to at-risk elementary, number of letters that have been identified, students identified middle school and high school at risk.
I mean, I think most teachers are passionate about education. I know there's just gonna be some conflicts. Maybe we can work with them as a team. We'll try to work with them.
But what would be the reading camp dates?
The reading camp is folded into summer school. It will be,
Yes, all right.
Yes, and that's where the, hold on, Mr. Governor, my eyes are not. 187,253, we've already received that money, and we can fold that in as long as it's aligned with use for 3rd grade in the, around that K3 zone. Or that's something that money will be, or that money will be used in there as well. I think the fortunate thing of this legislation is we were not required to do reading camp separate from this. That would have become very cumbersome.
What's your, I mean, it's hypothetical, but I heard that number the other day and we got off heated the other day. North Carolina, 75% was below threshold of, where they needed to be at. I mean, do you think we're gonna catch up in the summer? Is it gonna take a year?
I certainly don't think we'll catch up in the summer. 150 hours can never equate to the learning loss that many students have experienced this year. What I do think we can do is gather some good data about what we need to do going forward as a kindergartner moves to 1st grade, as a 2nd grader moves to 3rd grade, so that, because I think everyone is going to be playing catch-up next
I
year.
was thinking that we need to look at something from the school year starts. Maybe.
How many people you think out of those 3,500? For me, this is just my guess. I'm thinking 300-400 tops out of 35 that will even go to that because they've had a tough year. I don't think you'll have a great.
You probably won't. But they need it. I was thinking.
They may need it. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying they won't show because we went to school and tried to do it. But can you imagine what the numbers are at risk in these counties? We just started back to school last week. If they tell you the truth, it's got to be unreal.
I was thinking of moving
I
forward.
mean, we're paying, this is a price paid for those systems to stay in.
Mr. Biggs, to your point, I'm going to tell you, I think catching up will take a good 5 years.
Yeah.
I think it's going to,
Do we offer anything during the school year? Y'all may already be thinking about that.
well, part of what's going to happen, you have two situations here. You have the credit-based high school experience, and you have the non-credit-based K-8 experience. And so it's going to be a different challenge at different levels, but the key is gonna be identifying where students are and how do we differentiate moving forward. You know, even in the regular school year, the differentiation in instruction is gonna become much more critical than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And it's been critical, but it's gonna get really critical.
You're not
over the
gonna
next-
really get
Yeah.
them, really start assessing.
And
Which-
this is all face-to-face.
Yes.
All face-to-face, no virtual learning in the summer.
About 6.25 hours a day.
Yeah, I'm looking up there, Mr. Cutler, 6 hours, 53 minutes.
Okay.
6:23, 6 hours, 23 minutes after you take out 30 minutes for lunch and physical activity. So trying to keep it right there, 8 o'clock to 2:53. And Kathy, that's the range she gave the principals, and they're inside that window now figuring out their schedules. So teacher hours, 7:30 to 3:15. And there's, Kathy, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud now. There's 3 planning days prior to the first day of that week
Yes.
prior to. So I think it was 9, 10, 11 or planning days, or is it? No, is it 8,
8,
9,
9, and 10.
Because Fridays we're on 4-day weeks, starting that week of June 7th. We start on 4-day weeks.
The curriculum they're gonna be teaching, who's mandating what they're gonna be teaching?
Well, I'm gonna show you a schedule, if Ms. Davis will move that for me. So this is a sample summer learning opportunity schedule for elementary school. Now, the state has already told us what we will do, which means we have to teach reading, math, and science. Okay? We have to offer some kind of an enrichment opportunity. I've worked with Dr. David Cross, and we are looking at an enrichment opportunity that evolves around CTE and opportunities that kids can get involved there. Principals will have the opportunity to plan enrichment activities of their own. There will be a physical activity period, which could be as simple as walking around outside, not being in the building all day. And then they have lunch, they have a breakfast prior to, which we believe will probably be a grab-and-go breakfast so that we can get moving right at 8 o'clock. So that's what the schedule would look like for an elementary school, but we've been mandated to teach certain things.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
We've been mandated. So there will be some social emotional learning component supports to what happens each day, in addition to all of the other things that we have been told we have to prepare for. This is a middle school schedule, which looks a little bit different. They're going to use iReady as their assessment tool, and because we have iReady in the middle schools and they're used to that system, they're going to use that to do some work with students. They're going to do some science labs. They'll have reading and math instruction daily. They'll have enrichment. They'll have the same components as the elementary schools do, much like elementary school. I think where it gets a little bit different is in high school. Because what the state has told us about high school is that we have to offer recovery for all of the EOCs, Math 1, English 2, Biology, and Math 3. So if you know about high school, what you know is that we've always run credit recovery in the summertime in high school. We'll use high school to do credit recovery still. We'll run this summer school program for the EOCs. And there are some high schools that are interested in doing some enrichment front-loading for rising ninth graders to get them ready for Math 1 next year, to introduce them to the high schools that they've not had the opportunity to get on those campuses, so that they know what the CTE programs are available on those high school campuses. which would be much more like a camp-style program for the rising ninth graders, and it could potentially be for 10th graders, because we know there are a lot of 10th graders that haven't been in school this year, so they could have that opportunity as well. So high school has about a three-pronged approach that we can work through. Certainly not a mandatory thing for them to run a camp that would bring in their rising ninth graders or 10th graders who haven't been on campus, but they're gonna have that possibility if they choose to do that. And they will get the opportunity to earn an elective credit in addition to the EOC courses.
So the high school situation is really intriguing to me because when I was a high school principal with this block, constantly looking to see if we could get maybe a student who didn't experience success one year, get them to a mid-year promotion. This is a chance to do mid-year promotion in summertime by giving them a chance to an elective credit. Also, what's very intriguing to me, because I believe that this pre-teaching is you get some at-risk students that are headed into a Math 1 class, and you may be able to increase their level of confidence before they ever actually get to that Math 1 class with the camp format in the summer program. Math 1 can be a very daunting experience for children, especially if math is not their strength. And now you give them a chance to be exposed to some of this, so that confidence goes up as they walk in that class in the fall. So I think there's some, I think we don't know what outcomes can come out of this. And again, it starts back with, it is going to start with, of all the at-risk kids we invite, and who is going to come? Are they going to come or not? And then after that, what happens? And probably the most intriguing thing I've seen out of the high school is, yes, you want them to have a chance to get credits. Yes, if they failed something, they can take an elective and maybe get bumped over to be the next, maybe they weren't going to be retained by credit numbers, but this gets them moving forward and not in danger of not graduating on time. But that part about giving them access in a camp format to something like a Math 1 on the front end, that could be very powerful moving forward. And I will say this to you because it came up today as Todd Lowe and Kathy and I were meeting this afternoon. This probably isn't the only summer we're going to be required to do this. This is probably going to become, so what we learned this summer, we can really help students, and we can really, this can really help with, particularly at the high school level as well with this. One of the big things I used to block schedule as a high school principal was, I might have a child in their freshman year that wasn't going to go to be a sophomore. But I promised them that if they did what they needed to, and by mid-year, their second year in high school, they had made it sophomore status, I would do mid-year promotions. And I did that for every grade level. And I think this has a parallel to that, Kathy.
Question. Apologize for being late. We may have already discussed it, but, and you touched on it here. Now, are they going to receive credits to where if they're a sophomore now, they can go in as a junior next year?
Yes. They will get credits for everything but the camp, right, Kathy?
They can get credit for the elective course that they're taking. If you took Math 1 in the fall, say you took Math 1 in the fall, you tested and you didn't pass the class and you weren't proficient on the test, then this opportunity you can use, which is not the standard practice for what the Randolph County school system does. Because typically, if you fail the course and you aren't proficient on the test, you restart in the class at the next available time. This summer opportunity is going to give students the opportunity to come to school for 150 hours, and at the end of that time, if they have met the criteria set by the district, that they deserve to get the credit, then they can get credit for the course without retaking the course again or taking the test, because the state said that you don't have to retest. There was a time when if you weren't proficient, you had to keep testing. State doesn't say you have to do that anymore. What we typically do is restart a student at least one time so that they can attempt to pass again. So I've worked with Ms. Davis and her team in testing and accountability, and we've researched what the state says about retesting. And we can allow these students the opportunity to recover the credit by sitting in the class for 150 hours of instruction. At the end of it, to credit recover as if they were taking an APEX course. Although this class is going to be face-to-face. Does that make sense, Mr. Singh?
Yeah, I've had some kids ask me that as far as if they attend this summer, and they do need the credits to become a junior, is that going to help them to become a junior?
Now remember, these courses are for ELC courses, so if they've taken an ELC, that's what this applies to. We also have credit recovery that we offer every year at every high school, so students can recover the credit for a class that they failed. So they can be invited to do that as well.
Will that be within this 150 hours that we're talking about?
Credit recovery runs a little bit differently because credit recovery students will, say for instance, I have 1 credit to recover. I go work on my course, when I'm done, I'm done. I might be finished in 2 weeks. Well, if I finish in 2 weeks, I'm done with summer school. Okay? So I might have a history course that I'm trying to recover. I don't have to sit for 150 hours because in our credit recovery model, you work as long as you need to recover the course. So we got several different things moving at the high school in order to try to get kids the credits they need to get to graduation. And the state is going to require us to only report those courses, the number of courses that we recover in the summertime. They don't require us to give a test. They just require us to tell them how many courses our kids recover in the summertime.
So they would enroll in this as far as the start of the 150 hours and then whatever period of time that they have completed or whatever course it is that they need credit for. They're good to go.
If they're in the APEX credit recovery portion of the summer program.
So they can do APEX recovery like they've done in the past, or they can come back to an EOC class, which is what this summer school really offers extra. But what Kathy and her staff was all about was, okay, while we're doing these EOC courses to get, let's make sure we've got APEX still running, which we have every summer. And then Kathy, in the mix also is the opportunity for elective credit, which may not satisfy, it may satisfy and help them with a credit. That doesn't have to be something they failed, does it?
No.
It may satisfy a credit number, a number of credits, because you get to the next grade level, get promoted, you need number of credits. It may not be a complete an elective's not going to go satisfy your need for English 2, but it may get you a number of credits that you need. So there's really, to me, there's 3 avenues that a child can take advantage of here.
The other thing, Mr. Singh, that we have running in high school that we do every summer and we'll do this summer too is Allotment. And Allotment is going to offer students the opportunity to earn elective credit. So there are lots of things going on in high school that students can do that is not necessarily the summer learning opportunity, but it is what Randolph County Schools offers high school students every summer. And I felt like we needed to stand up everything that we could stand up for high school students to try to get them to graduation and not take any pieces away, but add to the possibilities.
That's probably the best description you can say there. We're taking what they're telling us we have to do and adding to what we've been doing. Instead of saying, okay, we've got to do this now, so we've got enough on our plate, let's don't do APEX credit recovery. No, we need to keep what our kids. If you go to a high school in the summer, you'll see children down in the computer lab doing the APEX credit recovery. That's still going to be there, and that's the one that it's, I guess you would say, Kathy, work at your own pace. That's not going to be sanctioned by the 150 hours. Now, the elective credit they may pursue because of this, that's 150 hours. The EOC course credit they may pursue because they didn't have success, That's 150 hours. So they really have 3 avenues that can help them.
It's guidance counselors, pretty much.
Yes.
So,
We're going to have one of the staffing things is the guidance counselor at each site.
say that again.
One of the staffing pieces of this plan is the guidance counselor at each site.
How's this going?
Yes, they will help, and that's what that's why this next month is so critical. Because we have got to get out and make sure we get kids in the right places that this can help them.
You know, if you don't have the right guidance counselor or a guidance counselor that's good, you lose a lot, you know? I've had people in our high schools, you know, we have, I guess you have 2 in most high schools. And, you know, you're assigned, yeah, I'm on there. You're assigned a guidance counselor, and they do everything. They want to be with the other guidance counselor because their kid's coming up short because one's not doing their part.
Now, these 150 hours, how many of those hours can they miss? Still-
We haven't set the criteria yet for that. I will work with high school principals in the next few days to set the criteria for how much can you miss and still get the credit.
Yes.
So we haven't done that yet.
I'm sure.
And one of the reasons we haven't, Ms. Farlow, is because we're getting information out of State Board in drips and drabs. As a matter of fact, they're having a meeting right now talking about summer learning while we're talking about summer learning. So we're trying not to get too far ahead so we don't have to back up. So we're trying to stay in lockstep with them so that we know what's happening as we go.
Unfortunately, I'll say this, school doesn't happen overnight. Bus routes don't happen overnight. Child nutrition plans don't happen overnight, and classes surely aren't scheduled overnight. And so we will continue to drive forward, and if things come out in some of these meetings in Raleigh that we have to adjust, we will. But we've got to get some things in place to do right by our kids and our staff.
And it's almost May.
Yeah.
We feel good about where we are. We've got some next steps to do, but for the most part, I think we have a good solid plan in place. Todd, would you like to come on and talk about the budget a little bit?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you said this earlier, and I got short-term memory loss. So tell me, on the 150 hours that we condensed that now, as far as we took away some of the days, is that what, as far as,
We're going,
so many days or so many hours, is that the way it was? All right, so what was the number of days that were required?
30.
the number of days is,
30, I'm sorry, 30.
Okay,
it's either 30 days or 150 hours.
okay.
And if you stretch those 30 days, here's the dilemma. You can get it done quicker, but now you've got to change this back to the 5-day summer week, which is we've been doing the 4 days. So if you take those 30 days out, 5 days, it gets you into August, doesn't it, Kathy?
Yes.
Clearly.
Okay, so,
If we, especially if we took that 4th of July week off, it would put us right in August.
so my question is, the pay for teachers, they're not being paid on a daily rate then? They are being paid on a daily rate.
Mr. Lowe's gonna talk about the budget and how folks are gonna get paid.
Okay.
Okay, so as far as the budget goes, that's just what it is, a budget, it's a projection, because we don't know who the staff members are going to be at this point. So the slide that Beth has up there breaks down the different positions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different positions, starting with an administrator. Typically, that's going to be an assistant principal. So I just pulled average daily rates in that first column. So you see the daily rates, and once again, these are averages for our staff members based on these categories, not necessarily state averages. 27 days, 3 days of planning, 24 days of summer school. So total salary for those 27 days is in the next column. The only benefits that we're paying on the summer school per legislation would be the matching FICA tax. Wages are not subject to retirement. Of course, there's no insurance on the summer school the employees don't earn leave. So the matching is just the FICA. So then you get an average cost per position of salary plus the FICA. And then in the next to last column, the number of positions. 20 assistant principals, one at each site. I know the 270 teachers looks like a large number. All of these salary projections are based on every student showing up that's invited. So this is, in terms of cost, this is worst case scenario in terms of the highest cost. Go ahead.
All right, so I guess the question I was asking, I think you understood, I understand you said it's 27 days, not 30. So I was looking at it, all right, if we say our daily rate's 219, and we're cramming 30 days into 27, I know you don't want to say cramming, maybe, but if you understand what I'm saying, then as a teacher, I'm not getting paid 219 a day. I ain't getting paid 219 a day for my 27 days, but I'm doing 30 days of work by state standards, correct?
I don't know about that. I don't know about the 30 days of work. That would be, their day consists of, it's going to be about a,
6 hours and 30 minutes.
But you understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, if the state said, hey, you gotta have 30 days or 150 hours, and we said, okay, well, we paid you 219 a day, and in theory, you're still working 30 days, you're doing 30 days worth of work, you're just doing it in 27 days.
yeah, but I think that 30 days is, that would be less hours per day. I think this equates more to what just a regular school day would be. During the course of the school year. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think if we went to 30 days, then we're not in school. I mean, we're not in summer school as many hours per day.
I guess what I'm saying, like, if someone said, hey, I'm gonna pay you $219 a day to get this job done in 30 days, to get it done in 27, and I'm still gonna get paid 219 times 27, not 219 times 30.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but
But if we if we do 30 days, and it's gonna be 33 days, because we just can't, we're gonna need some planning days on the front end of that as well. It's 27 days with the 3 planning. So, you know, we're just trying to keep this thing from going into August. And we can do whatever schedule the board would like. We can do, but we're just trying to keep it going, get it going as soon as possible. But we can wait until after July 4th to start it and run right up to August work days. We can do whatever we wish because it just says the summer. But we felt like it was important to try to give anybody who was going to help with this a little bit of a decent break on the backside, because even the ones who choose, as a teacher, I used to teach a 3-week course every summer at Apex High School, but I can tell you by the time that was over, I was ready for a good window. I didn't want to.
So you're looking, this is best, these rates are based on regular school day, correct?
But yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, your summer school day is going to really be about the same length as a regular school day.
And that's 6
that's what they're making.
some hours. But if you take 30 days divided into 150 days in a 5-hour day.
I mean, I think the best way, I understand what you're saying, Fred, but I think the best way to say it is they're going to get paid the same rate of pay they're getting paid during the school year, and the hours pretty much line up with what they're working during the school year also. It's about the same instructional day.
Right now,
I understand,
If you take it, so really, if you took and you went to a 5-hour day, what it equals up to, that 219 would actually become less, because they're not working the same amount of hours per day, they're actually working less.
Yeah, we're paying them for a full day. And like I said, to me, it lines up with what their normal.
If we said, okay, we're going 30 days, we have paid teachers $657 more, is that right? Something like that. If we went in 30 days.
Well, I don't know, we'd have to have some discussions about a 5-hour day versus a full day.
All right, that's fine, I don't, you know, just.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, me as a teacher, if I was a teacher saying, okay, you're getting paid for 30 days, I look at it as, hey, you're getting it you're doing it in 27 days, we're still, but so we won't pay that.
I'd look at the 30 days, it wouldn't be a full day each day.
I was just sitting here thinking, when you were saying that, I was thinking about Friday night, last Thursday night, when I was at work and somebody had a little bit of trouble, had been off the highway, and I stayed about 45 minutes because they needed help. And the other night, it was about almost an hour. They were in trouble, and I was just thinking, you know what, basically, I just did it. I don't know, I mean, sometimes I think people get so caught up, you owe me for this, you owe me for that. God, we lost a lot. Yeah, it just, I'm thinking, if I got paid for every minute that I wasted or done something, man, I'd be a rich man. You're dang right, I'd be a rich man, but I give away.
I thought you had an 11-month employee. Are they getting paid this on top of that?
Basically, we'll take that in consideration. So once again, we went with the highest case scenario in all these. So if we have 11-month assistant principals, yeah, the first part of summer school in June they're already being paid. But once again, because we don't know who the staff members are going to be at this point, we just said, okay, highest case scenario.
You can't pay somebody twice for the same period of time.
And that's historically what we've done in prior summer reading camps. Todd, if you're already being paid for that month and you would, yeah, so.
So actually, these numbers will come down there.
I don't think there's any way we want to spend this kind of money.
So the teachers that elect to teach the classes where we talked about earlier that they could finish in 2 to 3 weeks, I mean, are they gonna have that option of which ones they can teach, or is it just gonna be a guideline?
The Apex Credit Recovery person is already, that's a program running, there's already a person involved in that. The elective and the EOC courses that are coming because of this program will be 150 hours, so the teachers wouldn't leave early. They wouldn't leave early on that.
Okay.
The Apex coordinator we would deal with just like we do Apex coordinator now.
Okay, so on, one more slide on the personnel cost. So a couple bonuses that are in legislation. There would be a $1,200 teacher signing bonus. For these purposes, I guess this is one exception where we didn't use the full numbers. We took half of the teachers because to qualify for the signing bonus, you have to be nationally board certified, or you have to have received one of the reading or math bonuses that the state has paid out the last 3 or 4 years, I believe. Can't remember exactly how long. So those are the teachers that would qualify for the $1,200 signing bonus if they chose to teach summer school. So we just said, okay, if we brought in had to bring in 270 teachers, we're going to say half would qualify for the bonus. That's where we get the 135, and you see the cost there, $174,000. The other bonus is a bonus at the end of the summer school, and it would be for 3rd grade students that that were proficient on the end of summer school assessment. And so at this point, we just said, okay, if all of them, 660, as far as the ones that would receive the invitation, if they all received the bonus, then that's how much would be paid out is per student that goes to that teacher.
And that's just the at-risk kids, obviously.
It would be the ones, I think the wording in the legislation, it would be the ones that didn't pass the EOC in reading, but then they did pass the summer school assessment.
Yeah, DPI will create a summer school assessment, and if they weren't proficient on the EOG, on the 3rd grade reading EOG, but they are on the DPI assessment, for every kid, the teacher would get $150. So also you need to know that the sign-in bonus, those reading bonuses that Todd was talking about in the past in math, reading was for grades 3, 4, 5, math was for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the only way a high school teacher could get a sign-in bonus is if he or she had national board certification, the way I read the legislation. And the only people that can get to the performance bonus is somebody teaching 3rd graders in this summer school plan.
And so then that brings the total personnel projection to 2,628,48. And then 3 other categories that we put in: curriculum materials. Once again, worst case scenario, $410,565 if every single child showed up. Transportation, Wendy gave us a number of $516,864. Once again, that's a projection, not sure where the students are going to be coming from right now necessarily. And then school nutrition, $324,051. So that would bring the total cost $3,872,328. But I can't imagine we're going to spend that kind of money. That's just based on all the kids showing up.
This is federal code money, whatever we
Yeah.
use for this.
This would be a combination of summer reading camp money. Dr. Gainey had said earlier, we've received about $180,000 so far. We did find out last week that that was the first installment of that money. We're going to receive a second installment. I imagine will be well over $300,000 as a total allotment. I'm still looking into trying to get some. I haven't really gotten a concrete answer yet on just what all we can spend that money on. In the past, of course, it was just for those K through 3 reading. Or was it first through third or K through 3?
K through 3, if I remember right, yes.
Yeah, specifically for that in the past. This year, I've heard some language, not necessarily in legislation, but I've heard some things coming out of DPI that makes me think it'll be a little more flexible. Just because we know that at the elementary schools now that we're folding the reading camp into it, well, an elementary teacher is going to be teaching reading, math, and science. So I don't think that they truly expect us to split out salaries. This portion of your day, you're paid out of this money because you were doing reading. So going to get some confirmation on that, but to answer your question, yes, it would be reading camp money and then ESSER 1, which is federal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in some of my presentations, but yes, it would be a combination of federal and state.
I know we said we did a survey earlier on teachers who wanted, to participate in this. And what we looked at as far as transportation, child nutrition, part of that personnel.
I think that's going to be somewhat of a challenge. I haven't talked to Wendy about specifically, we just talked about numbers. We didn't really talk about, or budget, we didn't really talk about positions, and same with Kelly, but I think it's doable. But I think, like we had said earlier with the high school, it could be a challenge.
Todd, what do you think, I know we've been down this road several times, but not like we are now, but all this money coming from the sky, this fall and everything, when do you think it's going to all hit and we're going to be in trouble, big trouble? It has to come ahead at some point. We're going to have a crisis on that. I'm just telling you, it's going to come. It'll come.
Yeah.
It always does, and we're going to be in a mess.
Yeah, I think the day is coming, but we've already seen a little bit of it with the summer school program itself, because we don't have summer school funding. We have summer reading camp funding, but otherwise they said use all available sources to pay for your summer school. So it's already kind of saying, hey, we've already given you some money, so you use some of it to pay for your summer school. When we received the money, that wasn't really being discussed.
This must be a good plan because it's you now.
I heard.
He said they couldn't vote.
That is going to happen, I'm telling you. And I'm sure they got a lot of input. They ask you, right? I just like to do Raleigh Cross.
We've never voted in, so we think I'm sure.
I'm telling you, it's amazing.
I said, make it start tomorrow.
So that's the projected cost. Any other questions before?
One last thing, Todd, I want to mention, we talked about this today. School nutrition, we are still investigating that, whether that cost was paid out of ESSER money, the federal relief money, or done through the USDA reimbursement, like when we do regular meals served. Kelly and Todd are researching that right now. So it may be that 324, comes from regular child nutrition processes with USDA versus the ESSER money. We just gotta look and see there.
Yeah.
So, and yes, Mr. Cook, I have those very same concerns because, you know, you saw last night the amount of relief money coming our way, and just 2 or 3 short years ago, we were asking for $300,000 more in transportation costs as we made the case that we were a county the size of some other counties with more student population. We're still driving the miles. And as you'll see in Todd's presentation today, those short years ago, we were asking for, could we just get a little bump on our technology money where it was going backwards to the levels of 08 or 09 levels. And so we will be working on, we'll be working through this the best we can. My line with this relief money is, this relief money, and I'm really excited about something tonight we're going to talk about. This relief money, it just can't be used as operating as we were. It has to be used, I don't know how anyone would describe this, but this relief money is intended to help us reinvent ourselves as a result of the impact of COVID-19. And the item tonight is one of those real steps. This one is almost, we're going to use the relief money to do some more things. Mr. Biggs, your comment is right on par. What happens during the school year? Well, this is not, we've been told, this is not to spread this over the school year. This summer learning, this extra learning opportunity, this is intended to be right now in this summer, separate from, it's not an extension of the school year we're ending. It's also not allowed to be a precursor to the school year we're starting. So we're going to do the best we can with this. We will have personnel that will help us. And y'all ask great questions. Ones that we don't know the answer now anymore than we will tomorrow or 3 days from now. We'll know probably June 14th. How many kids are coming? We'll know it prior to then probably, but we'll really, Kathy, I don't know if she's smiling or what, but she's shaking her head. We'll know when they show up. But here's where we are, and Kathy and her staff are going to continue to push forward, and we've got to get some things for Raleigh.
And doing a great job. I mean, it's just a lot of questions.
But you know, the funny thing, I know, and myself, and I mean, you may have, but on a lot of this stuff that's come down from Raleigh, I know we asked questions. I got a call, I asked questions about some stuff, and heck, before the conversation over, they was asking me questions about their own field. So I knew everything was going to be all right, you know?
Yeah,
I knew it was going in the right
Yeah,
direction.
they how I was going to
Yeah, they asked me exactly.
Well, and to tell you, as part of that, to tell you the frustration, yes, I am a little, I don't know if I want to use the word frustrated or not, but Todd and I watched this for years and years, years and years, it's been 8 years now, we've seen trying to close the gap on our transportation, close the gap on our technology needs, and that's not going away. And when this all clears, that's still going to be there, and we're still going to be talking about it unless that we get in a better position at that point to close that gap. Because being funded at a technology level of 08, 09, that is just, I can't even comprehend that. Here we are in 2021. I can't comprehend that, how our technology funding's gone like this over the years, up and down. So, thank you, Kathy, thank you, Todd. Board members, do you have any other questions about summer schools?
I want to say one more thing on the school nutrition portion of summer school. We're going to figure that out and work that out to where we don't need the school nutrition program losing any more money. You'll see later in the budget update, we'll talk about that a little bit. And so they lost $700 and some thousand last year. So we're going to work it out to where it's not going to impact their budget. So.
Mr. Sink, you had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can't use the ESSER money on school nutrition, we'll make sure we've got it covered a different way, because we're going to keep from going backwards. Kathy?
I've got just 2 more slides I want to share with you because I want you to know what the requirements for reporting are at the end of summer school. We must report the results of any competency-based assessments we give to students in grades K-8, competency-based assessment to students in grade 8 at the beginning of the program, at the conclusion of the program, students who will make progress to the next grade level after they've participated, the number of students who are retained in the same grade after they've participated, and the number of students who receive credit recovery in high school. So those are some of the things that the state will require us to report out. So as Dr. Gainey said, we can't wait for what could or could not happen today. We have to go forward. So each school will advertise the offering of summer recovery and enrichment program on their webpage. We will offer that same advertisement on our own district webpage. School administrators have identified and now will invite at-risk students to attend the program. We have a form letter template that's going to all the high school, middle school, and elementary school administrators to do that. Then based on the number of enrollment yeses that we get, we are going to then know what our personnel needs are. That's going to help to drive our transportation needs and our nutrition needs, and we will know exactly how many materials and supplies we need to purchase. So that's where we are with the summer learning program. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Can we get a copy of this?
Absolutely.
And also, will we get the results of what's being given to DPI and October?
We can do that for you.
I imagine when they get done with the legislative session, my guess is those results, it has too much of a look of the reading camp results and the, I imagine will be required, that'll come out, that will be required to post it on the webpage. So, thank you, Kathy. Kathy, I know we're going to probably run out of work session. Go ahead.
Will there be a deadline on like when the students can apply for all this? I'm sure there's going to have to be some type of.
We will have to set a deadline in terms of when they must have their enrollment documents returned by.
I know we looked at 8 elementary schools like that, and I know that's probably split up where 2 schools can come to 1. Once the numbers are so low, say 3 of these schools, 4 of these schools, we'll cut the number of schools back and lessen further.
We'll have to make a decision on what that, it's going to have to be a call of what's the cost of the busing. We've got a lot of work to do based on the response, Mr.
Probably, yeah.
President.
Right now, school just don't have nobody showing up, and then how far away.
I mean, yeah, you might have 10 kids at this school. But
Yeah, it's the cost of opening the school less than the cost of transporting. Yeah, that's gonna be some decision when we get this data back. Kathy, do you want to,
It's a lot to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to work.
I want to, we may not get through the whole work session agenda, but I want Todd to come next with his update. But Kathy, you want to just touch on the program of studies real quick? Because there's not a lot, but we want to call your attention to this document Kathy and her staff work on every year.
The program of studies is a document that we produce annually. And as you can see, Beverly is sharing it with you. We have printed this document every year, and each year we've decreased the number of copies that we made. In 2017-18, we printed 1,900 copies. The following year, 18-19, we printed 1,900 copies. 19-20, we printed 1,473 copies. And then this year, we only printed 845 copies of the program of studies. Our goal has been to gradually decrease the number of copies. It is on our webpage. It is on every school's webpage. Parents can view it there. And the really good thing about having the document electronically is that when course codes change, and they do often, they have changed since we printed this book. It's up, we can update it in real time. So what we would like to do is to gradually continue to decrease the number of copies that we print. We know that we have to print some copies just because we're a rural county and everybody doesn't have internet, broadband capabilities, and they need a paper copy. So, but that is our goal. So what you have in front of you is the most recent copy of the program of studies for high schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and that's in line with what we've been doing with our student handbook, our school system student handbook as well, gradually bringing the printed copies down. And I really applaud staff for bringing it gradually in, but not going from 18,000 copies to 0 in 1 year. So thank you, Kathy, for monitoring that. Todd, if you're ready, we'll go to the budget update. Thank you, Kathy, for that information.
Ben, just clicking on the agenda.
Todd, if we get, board members, if we get done, we will try to, if we get done in time, we will try to finish up with at least the update on the school. They have some real good pictures. Todd, I don't know how long it'll take, Todd, but we'll try our best.
Yeah, we'll make up some time here.
That's code for no question.
That's not what I meant, Mr. Burgess. Come on now. I just
What you
feel,
say is what you mean.
Look, y'all just stop me when you need to stop me.
are you already on the last, are you already on the last page of the,
I'm gonna roll on. Okay, third quarter. January, February, March are the months we're looking at. So it's pretty much the kind of our regular agenda here: state budget, current expense budget, federal budget. We are going to look at the child nutrition budget. I told you I'd bring that to you this month. Charter school enrollment, cash balances, and areas to watch. So here we go. I'm going to try to do this from distance here. Okay, state budget. So allotments at the end of March, at the end of the third quarter, totaled $109.5 million. Compare that to where we were at the end of the second quarter in December, 108.3. So state allotments increased by $1.2 million during the third quarter. Increases, classroom teachers, non-instructional support, EC programs, technology, and yellow bus finance purchase. Now I will say this, most of that increase was in the yellow bus payments, and we haven't really ever talked about that much, but let me just explain that to you for a second, just so going forward, you'll know how that works. When we replace a yellow bus, that doesn't impact our bottom line on our budget. DPI pays for that, but we have to book it. Okay, so they give us money. They actually make the payments for us, so to speak, but they give us an allotment, even though it really doesn't flow through us. We do the purchase order and that sort of thing. We order the buses, but the payments come from DPI. So, but it does show up on our financials, so that's why $900 and some thousand of that 1.2 million was just a yellow bus allotment for payments that DPI will make on our behalf. Okay, next page on the inside the state budget. If we look specifically at transportation, the allotment as of the end of the third quarter was $4.8 million, and I thought it was interesting. We look back a year ago at the end of March, we were sitting there at 4.865, so basically the allotment is almost identical year to date this year compared to last year. Third quarter expense, so we spent $1.1 million in state transportation, brings our year-to-date expense to almost $3.2 million. And that $3.2 million breaks down between salaries and benefits of $2.4 million, contract transportation of $97,000, and then supplies and parts and everything else, $686,000. So as we talked a little bit in the second quarter update, I am projecting a little bit of a surplus in state transportation. That doesn't happen a lot. So right now I'm looking at about $300,000, but I will say that we're going to use that money. A portion of it we're going to use. I've been talking to Wendy, and actually Wendy and I are going to meet tomorrow, and she's got a list of things that she needs in terms of parts and supplies and some equipment. So we're going to spend some of that money there, and I will probably end up transferring the rest out into another program. So we're going to spend it, we're not going to revert it. And we are held harmless this year. So you've heard me talk in the past about how 1 year's funding formula is based off prior year expenditures. So in other words, if we didn't spend all of our state transportation money in a normal year, then that really hurts us in our funding for the following year. We're held harmless, school systems are held harmless this year. As you can imagine, a lot of school systems that haven't been in school most of the year, they haven't spent any transportation money to any degree. So the state had to do something there. So we're held harmless, so we're not concerned with that this year. But anyway, we'll have a little bit of money left and we'll spend it.
They're holding some money, aren't they?
Yeah,
You think about it, my gosh, those big systems.
yeah, and honestly, they would be able to they'd be able to transfer that money out into another program to help with other things, other categories. So.
That's really not bad, because I'm guessing they got all the cars.
And we touched on it a few minutes ago with inside the state budget, just as a reminder, that technology allotment. So as of the third quarter, we've received a whopping $3,443 in technology money this year. Now, our total allotment is $98,397, but that's actually because we carried forward $95,000 from last year. That is one state program that we can carry money forward. So we've only received $3,000 worth of new money, $95,000 worth of money from last year. But of course, even this $98,000 isn't enough to cover our recurring instructional expenses. And just some history going back to 16-17, you see the allotments, 539, 200,000, 479, and then last year 186. And as you recall, the reason why we basically did not get an allotment this year, that 343 is just some interest that they've given us on that money at the state level. They redirected the technology fund this year to help with the modernization project, the financial software project, to help with those pilot school systems. Some of those school systems are now starting to, they're about ready to go live. And so anyway, they've just shifted that money elsewhere. And, at this point, we were not one of the pilots. We were in that next wave. So we haven't reaped any benefits from that at this point.
And there's the part I was referencing, 539 down to 200, back to 479, down to 186, down to 3,400. I mean, we're in a technology age, and I'm not really sure what, I can't comprehend our technology, the continue up and down with technology funding from the state of North Carolina. And that pilot program, that business modernization, some board members, you may remember this, we brought in and we chose which direction we were going, and the transition, everything was supposed to be covered, and the first year of the transition was supposed to be covered, and because that money was not available at state level, because whatever happened, they went into the state technology fund and took the money there. So, this is concerning, very concerning. $3,000 from 186, but look at 186 from 539. That is huge.
The $3,000 was just the interest that was earned on the money.
No, it was zeroed out. You're exactly right. It was zeroed out. We were told it was zeroed. So I can't even explain that one to anybody in the public how.
Are you telling me when I look at that?
Yeah, basically, we were told at the beginning of the year that there would be no state technology allotment this year. The $3,000 is just interest, that our portion of the interest that they're sending our way. Basically, because they've gone 2 years without passing a state budget. That's supposedly what held up the modernization plan.
So let me clear this. So basically, our technology allotment was 3,000. That's the interest.
It's just the interest. The allotment really nothing.
But help me out here. No, I'm gonna go on social media. I'm gonna run for lieutenant governor next time, because I'm gonna make everybody mad like the guy there now. But a transportation allotment, if we was in Guilford County, for instance, and they probably, if we had 4 million, they probably had
Oh, gosh,
30 million?
probably.
And if they hadn't went to school, they're just getting to keep that money?
They can transfer, us, to my knowledge, unless there's, I know that I'll be able to transfer what we don't use, which will just be a small portion,
Which is
into another program.
$380,000, so
Yeah.
are they wide open to use that money on?
You can transfer it in certain other categories. I'm gonna transfer hours into low wealth because low wealth has a lot of flexibility. That's usually kind of our catch-all. So if, say out of that 300, if I have 100 that we don't spend for Wendy's needs, then I'll.
I thought they asked for.
But you'll see-
all the money back. In the past.
Well, there have been a couple times to where, one year we had to revert money. It wasn't necessarily transportation money. We had to revert money. Yeah, it was just funding in general from, I'm thinking that they hit a lot of categories that year.
But you're gonna see later in this presentation that we're really behind on fines and forfeitures. So it's not like, every time Todd can do something else with, we're gonna need, because fines and forfeitures are off.
But we ever used federal money for this technology,
Well, we've replaced, due to COVID, we've replaced some good technology. Yeah, yeah, that has
We have to be very careful.
helped quite a bit.
I guess what it says, obviously, we're seeing from 500 to 186 to basically zero. We feel the full effects of 186 to zero necessarily.
Not necessarily due to the COVID money.
But that all teaches the state that you gotta have technology. I mean, if it wasn't for the feds this year, good gosh, where the school would have been. I mean, we didn't have, like that, we didn't have the technology we needed.
They couldn't find a legislator in Raleigh during that time when we had to come up with the federal money. They didn't shut back up and went on.
So one more program inside the state budget I wanted to touch on, exceptional children, and specifically looking at 032, which is the by far the largest EC budget. The allotment is $9.5 million. In the third quarter, we spent $2.5 million, brings the year-to-date expense to 6.8. And we talked about this a little bit in the past in terms of where we're at now with EC budgets. The vast majority of that money is spent on personnel and contract services. 6.1 on salaries and benefits, another 625 for contract employees or contract services, and then 76,000 on supplies, equipment, and miscellaneous items. So I will say that I'm not projecting there to be a shortfall in PRC 032, and then we always use 032 and federal 60 together. And maximize the dollars as best we can. So federal 60, like most federal programs, carries over, that money carries over. So I'm actually projecting a little bit of a carryover in federal 60, and that'll be the first time in probably about 4 years that we've carried over money in 60. So that will do nothing but help us next year with our EC budgets, depending on how much we can carry forward. Now, that's to say if nothing crazy happens between now and the school year that requires a big expense. It's just another EC. It's a supplement to the state EC.
But the carryover has to stay in EC.
It does. It'll carry over in 60 and be reallocated in 60. It stays with EC. Yes. Okay. All right. Moving on to the current expense budget. So remember that when we say current expense, that's Fund 2 plus Fund 8. So those two funds total $24.5 million as far as the budget goes. In the third quarter, our expense was $4.9 million, or 20.1% of the budget. Brings the year-to-date expense to $18.1 million, or 73.8% of the budget. So if you use those guides, 25, 50, 75% for your quarters, we're right there where we should be. Inside that current expense budget, we look at the energy expense. In the third quarter, we spent $919,000, 26.1% of the budget. But that's okay, because if you think about it, we're always running a month behind on our energy bills. So we're really talking about December, January, February bills. Well, due to the weather, that's usually going to be some of our highest months. So we still came out pretty good. Brings the year-to-date energy to almost $2.3 million, but as you see, that's really only 65% of our budget. So the fourth quarter energy would be paid for March, April, and May, so that's going to be some of our lowest in terms of temperature. It's going to be some of our lowest months in energy consumption for that HVAC. So we're going to come in well under our energy budget, which is a good thing. Water's going to be the same way. I just attribute this, we've had less kids in the building, so less water usage. If you look at the year-to-date water, 249, that's only 40.7% of the budget compared to that to say 75% is where we would typically be. So there'll be some savings there. However, we get down to waste management, we're going to go well over on that. So in the budget, I've made some adjustments there in the budget for next year. So we'll just, some of our savings from water and energy we can throw over there to the garbage expense.
Can I ask a question? Why is our waste management?
That I do not know. I'm going to have a little conversation with Larry about that. I don't know if it's.
I mean, with less kids in school.
Well, and see, I would assume that most of those are just a monthly fee. I'm just not sure why, and maybe it's just that we haven't really had enough money budgeted there to begin with. I don't know if those rates have gone up. I know from dealing with some of my mom's expenses over the years, those rates continue to go up on just residential, so I'm not sure if the rates have just gone up on commercial or not. I'm not sure. But I do have that on my list to talk to Larry Chilton about and see if he knows, has any idea about that. Charter school expense so far year to date $1.3 million, so right there a little bit more than 75% of the budget. And on the current expense side of transportation, our local transportation, we spent $103,256. That's pretty much everything other than yellow bus. That's only 22.5% of our budget, so we'll have some savings in that line item also. All right, next slide. Talk about the revenues on the current expense side. Once again, budgeted revenues, same as the budget expense, $24.5 million. Third quarter revenue came in at 5.9. That's right there about where we should be in terms of a quarter. Year-to-date revenue brings it to 17.4 million. But as you see, we're under. If you use that 75% as the watermark, we're right there at 71%. And here's the big one: fines and forfeitures. In the third quarter, we brought in $221,000, 19% of the budget. Year-to-date is $627,841. So we're only at 54.5%. 54.6% of our budget in fines and forfeitures. A year ago at this time, we were at $740,000, still a little bit off even last year at this time, but we're $112,000 off the pace of where we were last year. Probably going to come up about $300,000 short in fines and forfeitures revenue this year. So when Dr. Gainey mentioned earlier, so every dollar we can save on the expense side is going to help us because we know we're going to come up short on our revenue.
This is where you're talking about the transportation money.
Yes. That indirectly will help us.
Can you use any of that money, like systems would be saving, like Gifford County or something happening in the school? Did they, some of these things, you see this money coming out from where in the world they get it, could they be getting it from stuff like that?
Potentially, yes. But yeah.
So like if you're saying, hey, we're gonna sign a bonus here, or
Once you move into the,
pay such and such $4 more, $5 more higher than we get,
it could be, once you move the money into,
at your kid's expense.
once you move the money into the low wealth category, you have a lot of flexibility there.
Wow.
Look at your utilities, Todd. I know they work on budgets, expenses, now we got this summer school, and half the summer schools will roll into next year's budget. I mean, you know, that could increase your budget by 5%, not counting the normal percentage. Have we figured that in our budget?
Are you talking about just on the, like, the use of the building, the utility side? Well, you know, you're talking about 3 weeks. I don't think it's gonna be that big of an impact, honestly. You know, the building's open normally during the summer. We're still on the 4-day weeks. It'll cost us a little bit more in utilities. I don't think it'll be a tremendous impact though.
I'll remember that day.
Yeah. We'll worry about that much. No, yeah, it'll be okay. But yeah, the utilities will be up more than a normal summer. But but consider, you know, we typically do have some summer programs going on anyway. We'll probably have larger numbers this year.
Like we talked earlier, you see this summer program probably going on for multiple years.
Yes. All right, I wanted to touch on a couple slides on the federal budgets. So we started the year, beginning federal allotments, total $14.3 million. As of the end of the third quarter, they're at $15.3 million. That's an increase of $963,000. Majority of those increases came from additional CARES or ESSER funding. And I listed 5 programs that we've received money from since the beginning of the school year. You see digital curriculum, a learning management system, EC services and support, specialized instructional support, and supplemental instructional services. These are all COVID related, these are all ESSA, they're just specific. So when we talk about ESSER 1, you'll see in a minute, we talk about ESSER 1 being that 3.6 that we initially received last year. That has a multitude of uses, as the chart of accounts, the budget codes, that's almost wide open. You can use it for almost anything related to COVID. Whereas these 5, much smaller amounts, they total about $963,000, but they're very specific as to what you can use them for, okay? Now, on the next slide is where we'll talk about our ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funding. So, ESSER 1, PRC 163, we received $3.6 million, so that was our first federal relief money last June. So year to date, we've used that, or I should say life to date, we've used that for PPE, cleaning supplies, additional teachers at the elementary level, additional custodians, some technology, thermometers. We still have around $2.5 million. That money expires September of 22. So not this September, but so we've got another full year to use it. So this is the money we're talking about for summer school. We're going to be using a combination of this money plus our state summer reading camp. And I'll get clarification on exactly what all I can use the summer reading camp money on. So we'll maximize that funding, and then we'll use the ESSER 1 to finish off summer school. So ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So here are two programs that we have not received the money yet, but we will be receiving. Our planning allotment for ESSER 2 is $14.1 million, and we'll have that money until September 23. So after this year, we've got 2 full school years for use of that money. And then ESSER 3, our planning is $31.6 million, and then we've got until September 24, so another year. So we've got more than 3 full school years for the ESSER 3 money. So once again, this money is going to be used for some of those, what we'll talk about later in the board meeting, special thing that we're looking at doing next year, summer school, of course, learning loss. In fact, I want to say 20% of ESSER 3 is mandated for learning loss, and just catching kids up. All the ESSER 1, 2, and 3, all the money has to be COVID related. You've got to tie it to COVID in some way or another. There will be, the audits have already started. We've already started we've been audited some on ESSER 1 already, and some of that state COVID money that we had in the first half of the school year. So we know those are coming, so we'll stick to the guidelines and stay in bounds on everything. You can't supplant with this money that was a discussion in one of our meetings, supplant or not supplant, and, you know, to me, it's not so much about supplanting or not, it's all about COVID related. So to me, it's almost like you don't even need the supplant clause, because if it's COVID related, then it should be extra money that you're spending anyway, because COVID is something additional that we're dealing with. So you can't just take this money to say, hey, let's pay all of our teachers out of this money for a year or two instead of the state allotment. So you just can't do that. But when we need extra teachers, or extra TAs or tutors, then that is COVID related, because we're trying to catch kids up.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple of slides on the school nutrition budget. So ended the 1920 school year with a loss of $745,352 in the school nutrition program. And one of the main reasons the loss was that size, we were unable to use some of that state relief funding in 1920 due to some legislative restrictions. And basically what it boiled down to was this. We knew they were going to have a loss once the school got shut down in March. And so we had that state PRC 125 money specifically for child nutrition. But the rules around that talked about you couldn't use it for revenue replacement, that sort of thing. So if you think about it this way, expenses for the program were down, okay? But revenue was down even further. Okay, so we didn't have an expense problem. We didn't have all this extra COVID expense. We had a loss of revenue in the program. And we went round and round, with this. We tried to look at it from several different ways last year. But what it boiled down to was this. If you remember, we had the state emergency leave last year, okay, for employees. So some of the child nutrition staff were using state emergency leave. Well, we couldn't pay expenses out of the state COVID money for people unless they were on the ground working. So you had to be on the ground working, and then you had to show that you had a loss. Well, the loss really came from having to pay all the salaries and benefits for the employees that weren't working, that were using the state of emergency leave. So it just wasn't going to work out for us to tap into that money last year. But now that this year we had our employees, child nutrition employees, back on the ground working at all the schools. So then we were able to use it. So in the first half of the year, and this is that money that we thought was expiring December 30th, and then at the last minute they extended it, but we went ahead and we spent all of our money except for $2 or something. Remember that conversation? So we used $690,589 of that relief money to help out July through December. So what it boils down to now is year-to-date expenses. You see labor, 2.6. My eyes are failing on me. Operating expenses of $3 million. That totals $4,617,000. Year-to-date revenue right now is $4.5 million. So right now, year-to-date loss through the end of March, $56,855. Not good, but not that bad either, considering. So, but of course, a lot of that is due to being able to tap into $690,000 in the first half of the year. However, and you'll see on the next slide, now that we're back in school 4 days a week for all grade levels, we're serving more meals, which is helping the program, bringing us more reimbursement revenue. But just real quick, prior to March 14th, average meals served, breakfast 5,340, lunch 9,853. Since March 14th of last year, breakfast down 3,477 served, and lunch 4,630. So 1920, our total supplemental sales, 975,590, and that's even with that shutdown that occurred in March. Year-to-date supplemental sales as of the third quarter, only 165,924. That's where a lot of that loss is right there, or is occurring. Like I said, fourth quarter, we know we're going to be serving more meals. So I'd like to say we're going to break even this year, but we're probably not. But I think we're going to be pretty close. I think the loss is going to be minimal, especially when you compare it to $745,000 last year, which we just can't repeat that. But we'll probably end with a little bit of a loss in school nutrition, but hopefully we'll keep it.
School lunch has been free this year? Or how, seems like I heard something. What's it different?
Well, I know what I know is different is they're operating, excuse me, under the emergency feeding plan for the entire school year. And so I know their reimbursement rate is higher.
Help us with
Yes, that helps us, the reimbursement rate's higher, but as far as the cost of the meal, I'm not sure about that. I don't know that there's been any change there.
I don't remember that. But the thing that people don't realize about child nutrition is, I mean, what makes it go is the number of meals served and our required components. And that's huge. And then that supplemental sales, that fall off there is huge. And that will happen. And we've got to get back to where we were.
Okay. Charter school enrollment, just wanted to update you. At the end of the year, last year, we had 1,279 Randolph County students enrolled in 16 charters and 2 virtuals. So the current enrollment for this year is 1,304. Basically the same number reporting 16 charters and 2 virtuals. So that's the current increase of only 25 students over last year. And that number, you know, during the year it fluctuates a little bit. Kids drop out, kids enroll. So I thought it was interesting if you break it down and you look at UR charter. So currently 1,047 students. That's actually one less than was enrolled at the end of the year last year at UR charter, as far as our students go. However, the virtual academy, you see they've ticked up a little bit, 65. That's plus 15 compared to last year. Average cost, $1,342 per student for a regular charter, and the virtual charters per legislation cost us $790 per student. And once again, I showed you this number before, but the year-to-date charter expense, so we paid out $1,314,000 in charter school payments this year so far.
And Todd, that's something board members to watch on that $790 for virtual charters. That has come up in the past couple of years, and it's been pushed back of why would they need for the virtual charter the same amount per student as a in-person charter would. When they that 1342 to 790, there's been a push for them to get the virtual charters to get more than 790, but the pushback has been why there's not a facility, you're not maintaining a facility like a URE charter is. So watch that one in the budget deliberations over time. We're going to need to stay on top of that because.
So we have a virtual school, they're gonna pay us $700 for virtual.
Would that get rid of some of that?
Ours would be considered a charter school.
Might put some of those
Okay.
It'll still be under our umbrella.
There's still, okay, all right, I didn't want to,
There's two
well, hey, you said
charters
you don't give less, okay, we'll give you
Buy
less.
yourself a
Yeah, just be careful.
There's two virtual charters in the state. One's called the North Carolina Virtual Academy, and one's the North Carolina Connections Academy. And last I looked, we have about 58 students in those, maybe off a little, give a little bit here or there.
65.
65 now.
It jumped up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got it there, don't you? So it jumped up 7 from when the last number I had.
Okay, cash balances, current expense $4.4 million, capital outlay $766, AT tax $2.1 million, and child nutrition $3.7. Once again, those fluctuate based on timing of expenses and revenues. And then the last slide I had was just to watch a few things for the fourth quarter. Of course, our fines and forfeitures revenue, we know we're going to come in under that projection or under that budget. And then I'll be interested to see what that fourth quarter school nutrition financial information looks like, how they finish the year. And then any legislative action. This time of the year, we're always looking at that for the next school year. Any questions? All right, thanks.
So, board members, we have 2 items that we've not got to, we can do a couple of things. We could add them as information items to the agenda at the beginning of the board meeting tonight. One is an update on the new school. I know that.
Can we add the update during our regular meeting?
Yes, that's right.
People would like to.
When we start, why don't What we'll do is, I'll get with the attorney when they get here. Before we approve the agenda, we'll need to add that and the student assignment update, and then we'll get them out of the way. We'll put them as information items in my section, because they have some pictures, and we do have confirmation when we're going to be starting
And I think
the
that's
site.
better.
Yeah.
Pretty happy.
I don't think we want to wait another month. We get to May 17th, and we're right there.
We'll bring me and chill with regular prime time.
Okay. All right, well, we'll be back and we'll add that at the beginning, okay?
Let you have it. Yeah, when I get hot next time, I'll call.
We're not on.